Greetings, you are listening to The Heartful Technologist. I'm CK Hicks, and today I've been thinking about, it's fall here in the Midwest, and the trees are all turning, leaves are starting to fall. It's a beautiful, beautiful time of year. The air starts to feel crisp, and summer is fading slowly into the distance. Winter will be here soon, I'm sure, but there's this incredible feeling around this time of year of slowing. And I realize that puts this in a moment in time, but for me, that has really been a good portion of my year. It has been slowing down. I just kind of hit a milestone recently of a full year off on my own as an independent contractor. In the past 10 years, I've been at 2 different agencies, and before that, I was a freelancer, but I didn't do it well. I didn't have it set up well, didn't have the infrastructure, and my current arrangement has been wonderful. It's been a really nice break from agency life, and it also comes with its own challenges. It has less support structures and less architecture around it, but the way it's working out has really been neat. And though there are moments, I tell people the highs are high and the lows are lower. Overall, what's really been amazing is this feeling of slowing, and it's not just because of this time of year, it's because of the whole year, this last year, beyond the calendar year, even just the last 12 months. I feel like I've been slowing a bit, and it's been calming. It had a calming effect on me, even though there have been moments of very high stress. The way it averages out and the way it influences the work and the kind of things that I want to make and the way I want to use the different skill sets and everything that I have really started to stretch out and slow down. And that has a calming effect on me. And it reminded me a little bit, do you remember that scene from Inception where Leo's character is talking about the time that they spent down in limbo, and they could just build and build and build, and it was endless, and they felt like gods. They could build anything they want. But then they kind of got to a point where they realized that, like, this isn't real life. This isn't something that they can sustain. They know that there's a world to get back to at some point. And I was thinking about that because there are definitely times, especially when you're working in a startup environment or you're working in a small, scrappy team, agency, contractor, whatever, anytime you do this, if you're part of an R&D group or anything like that, I've been in a lot of these different scenarios, and a lot of times you're building to build. You're building because you're trying to spark imagination or, influence a sales idea or bring in someone to have a conversation about something in a new line of business or whatever it might be. And I feel like those opportunities sort of remind me of that moment in Inception where you're kind of in this space that truly is limbo. I think the nomenclature around this is actually really important. That when you're in that moment, you feel like you're in limbo, even though you have ultimate freedom and flexibility to charge forward or to imagine a new future or whatever it might be. But ultimately, that you have to get back to the reality of a situation. You have to be building for something. That it needs to have purpose. It needs to have some kind of sustenance, because nothing can just continue at that pace forever. And we've seen that, in a lot of the AI startups and a lot of the kind of flash pan technologies that, crypto had its moment, and some of these things will even out and become long-term sustainable businesses and entire fields of study and research and development and commerce. But a lot of times, if you get caught up in that moment, or you live in that moment because of whatever line of work you're in, you can kind of feel like Leo in Inception, where you're just kind of building and building and building, and you don't really have a direction. And it's fun for a season, but it's crippling in the long run. And I think, when you're working as a contractor or you're an independent freelancer or whatever it might be, or maybe within a big organization and that you just have autonomy, it's easy to get into this situation where you feel like you have so many different things that you could do. You have flexibility, you have autonomy, and you can just build and build. And yet, when you don't have a North Star, you don't have some sense of serenity and an idea of this like slowing down and knowing that you're going in a certain direction, even if you're, prototyping and building and testing and stuff all the time, like I am. If you're still headed, if you have somewhat of a compass heading, you're going somewhere, then it changes your relationship to the work. It changes your relationship to the stress. It changes the way that you embody the tension or the pressures of the day. And even if you do still have pressure, we all do in our jobs, there's something different about having that direction that can really change your relationship to the work, at least in my experience. So as you're building, you have to be looking for this sense of purpose, right? Is looking for something beyond just the freedom of expression and bringing a new idea into the world. Ultimately, it needs to have a connection to something that is longer lasting. And I think that's where purpose and fulfillment can really come from, regardless of your employment situation. One of my favorite quotes that's attributed to G.K. Chesterton, I don't know if he actually said it, but it's attributed to him, is the true soldier fights not because he hates what is in front of him, but because he loves what is behind him. And I think that actually works in a lot of different areas. It definitely works in family life, and it works in the job setting. I think it applies to just about everything that you could do. The better position, the higher path, the more purpose-filled call is to do something because you want to further something and you want to see something sustained instead of opposing something in front of you. And as it just so happens to lock this even more in one time frame, I guess, we're entering the final weeks of the election cycle in 2024, and you don't feel that anymore, I think, than in this time and season in American politics. That idea of opposing something and that being, what you want to go to battle over, instead of standing for ideas and wanting to uphold something that is that needs to remain true, and that would be what would motivate you to go forward. But to bring it back to work, I think a heartful technologist, by all but definition, needs to embody that sense of fighting not what is, something that you dislike in front of you, but that if you have to fight, if you have to bring your full, will to bear against something or for something, then it needs to be for something. It needs to be because you want that to persist or exist. Something new needs to be created on behalf of someone, on behalf of some ideal or an idea. And that is when you get purpose. And when you have that purpose, then instead of just building to build over and over again, you have this calming effect in your work among the moments of stress that are guaranteed to come. But you have this kind of general calming to your work, and it brings about with it a slowing. And I think that helps to even out those kind of peaks and valleys. And you might even feel them more acutely because there's less of them. And so you're going to, it's like if you reduce your sugar intake and then you have something really sweet, you go, whoa. And you feel the peak in that moment because you have less peaks and valleys. You have more just gentle waves. And I think the more that we can approach work in that way, the more that we can just enjoy the slowing and the calming down of dealing with things in a sustainable way, and doing it knowing that we're furthering an idea or we're standing for something because we love it. However you personally embody the technologist title. And for me personally, that has been a real big shift in my thinking. And it's something I want to keep doing. So this season, this time frame, it's great for this. But regardless of when you listen to this, I hope that you can take a moment and try and find that calmer path, that slower path, and the more purposeful path that will ultimately bring you more fulfillment in your work. And to that, I will stop there and say thank you for your time and attention, and I'll talk to you next time.